It's summertime here in the Northern Hemisphere. And you know what? This is the best time to go on dates because you can actually go outside. Well, you actually want to be outside and it's not like cold. So I've been going on a few first dates, but there's a behavior habit that I started noticing like actively that I do with this. And that is I Google the person before I go on a date with them. Whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, but you have to do it like incognito so they don't see that you look them up, you know? And then just a Google search. And then I know that I'm not the only person that does this. But what happens, you get to the date, you're sitting across from this stranger, and we both think that we're meeting each other for the first time. But the problem is, I've kind of already decided what I thought about him before I've even been on the date. So we picked LinkedIn to understand the demographics here because it seems like Instagram and everything, you can have many accounts for people. Usually on LinkedIn, you have one account for one person. Unless you are my friends who are creating random accounts to stalk people. That also exists. But according to the site, there's 1.1 billion people on LinkedIn. And if we just say that these are true people, this is a documented account of this person's achievements and random thoughts about the business world on it. Google, it indexes all of that information. So when I search someone and you figure out their surname from the information that they've given on their dating profile and the place that they've told you that they've worked, you find their LinkedIn and you've got a lot more information about them. And then from there, you can find their Instagram. And from this, you have a little bit of a complete profile of who this person is, or at least who they portray themselves to be online. In 2018, there was a study of Canadians, and it found that 64% of them had already Googled someone before meeting them. Checks out, I guess. That's at least how I think. I thought it would be more. But that was 2018. That was quite a few years ago. 8 years? So I think it has increased. And this pre-screening in job interviews is kind of what's happening when you pre-screen someone before you go on a date. So I think this is where it gets a little bit interesting. There's a psychologist at Harvard called Nalini Ambady. And they ran a study where she showed people video clips, but no audio on them, to strangers. And the video clips were like 2 seconds long. And these video clips was actually of teachers. And then asked these strangers to rate what they saw. And she gave these raters no information about that they were teachers, their name, what they did. I guess that's the teaching part. I'm just trying to say there was like no background of any kind that was given to these strangers to rate this 2-second clip. And what had actually happened is that those 2-second ratings from those strangers actually matched up quite well to the ratings that the students who had interacted with these teachers for an entire semester and were asked to evaluate them. There was actually a match between the strangers' little bit of an impression on this person and the students' impression of this person. And the concept was the end of year rating. So effectively, were they a good person kind of vibes, I think. But this is where I find that this is an important experiment here for this episode. Our researcher, she then did a similar experiment. She then asked the judges, or these strangers that we're evaluating, to write down every reason why they gave a particular score to this person. Basically asking them to consciously explain this like snap judgment they had of a person. And then the accuracy, that correlation that we saw with the students and these strangers, it collapsed. What Nalini described what she found, she described it like riding a bicycle. The moment you pay attention to every single move that you're making on a bicycle, you actually fall off. It's more just this like intuitive sense that you go and you ride and you don't think about riding. Same thing with driving a car. I remember being a learner in the car and asking my dad, like, what is this? And he'd be like, I think the clutch goes like this, whatever. It was like active trying to do it made it harder to actually do it. And I understand that now, being able to drive a car, it's actually difficult to explain. It's just this intuitive muscle memory that we have. I'm not saying that the judgments were muscle memory, but I'm looking at that snap, that instantaneous judgment that we have of people and the accuracy around it. So, to summarize her experiment a little bit, and her conclusion was that the thinking brain overrides the reading brain. So, the thinking brain overthinking how to ride a bicycle, the reading brain just riding a bicycle. And in her experiment, it turns out the reading brain was more accurate in terms of how the people were, rather than overthinking, oh, Bianca is a good person, or teacher X is a good person because she looks kind, because she doesn't wear skull clothes, kind of thing. I know that's a very trivial example, but that's the kind of judgments that we make, especially on first time meeting people. And if we bring it back to Googling someone before you go on a date with them, the pre-Google is kind of like that thinking override, because you're already having conclusions about this person without even meeting them. Like, I show up on the date already having a picture of who this person is, what they like, how well off they are, how intelligent they are by looking at their LinkedIn and their yacht holidays. Okay, I've never been on a date with someone with a yacht, but if you do have a yacht, hit me up. I'm joking. I'll buy my own yacht. Probably won't. I don't even like sailing. But the important part of this is that picture that I've kind of drawn of this person, I spend the evening trying to confirm that picture that I already have of them based upon the information that I Googled about them. And that's the interesting thing here, because am I truly seeing who this person is? Obviously, you can't see who the person is on the first date, but I'm filling in this idea of who they are. And if I went in there without an idea of who they are, then I guess the picture would evolve by speaking to them, rather than me trying to fill in, why do you have a yacht? And this has actually been documented. This whole concept has been documented by psychologists. Because when people are told what to expect of a person that they're about to meet, they look for evidence that fits this picture. And then also discard information that doesn't fit this picture. So it sounds kind of bad for dating, right? There was a study by Cornell University, and it took 80 online daters. And what it found is that 81% of them had lied on their profile, specifically about a physical attribute. And then a follow-up study of these people also found that their photos were not even an accurate representation of the person in real life. But the researchers made an important comment. It said that they were small lies, just enough to be a little bit more attractive, not enough to be caught in a little bit of a pickle when you show up and you don't look like the person on your profile. So the document that you've curated to prime you so other people can find you and see who you are and all this kind of stuff is kind of built to pass the first meeting. You actually, when you Google them beforehand, or when I say you, I mean me, when I Googled them, I effectively was looking at the documentation and the way they want to be framed and want to be seen. That's exactly what I was doing. They were giving me that information, and that's how I was seeing them. Obviously, filling in my own anecdotes there, but you get my point. And then, when I was on the date, every moment that actually matched a person that I thought they were, I would note that subconsciously. But then the ones that kind of didn't match, I was like, no, it's just them acting like that today. Again, subconsciously, because I like to be proven wrong. But maybe in my dating life, I don't. So everybody knows what they're doing when they're curating a profile from Bumble, Hinge, Tinder to LinkedIn. They know what they're doing. And you're falling for it. Well, I'm falling for it. Now, this is a really difficult thing not to Google someone, because we can't ignore the safety factor of it. Obviously, if someone is a criminal or someone is a terrible person, their online persona is not necessarily going to show that, but we feel like we have a little bit more control when we're like, oh, this person went to X university and does this. They might be a better person. And all biased completely. But it's our way of having a little bit of control over who we are going to meet, because you are putting yourself in a vulnerable situation. And I'm mainly speaking for women out there, going to meet a random stranger that you met on the internet with the intention of trying to date them is a scary event in itself. So we're not going to get away from this behavior thing, but it is like it might be affecting the outcome of the dates because we're trying to make someone who we want them to be rather than just accepting who they are. Maybe that's just my conclusion on this. But like How I Met Your Mother, they had an episode on this and it ended everything really badly. And it's kind of what's playing out now, at least for a lot of people. And my friends are saying very similar things. Anyway, I have nothing more to say except that none of the dates worked out. So check it tomorrow.